So, very strange occurrence has just happened. Of all the people out there that would be for the production of oil, Elon Musk comes out today on his Twitter, and I have it over here on my left, but he says, hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. This is something we've been talking about on the channel for a while now. Why are we turning off our energy production in the U.S.? That's where our power comes from. And now, the leader in renewable energies in the country, which I would imagine is Elon Musk. It's ironic because he doesn't get much support for it. It seems like there's a lot of talk about how Ford and all these other auto companies in the States are going energy independent. But for some reason, Tesla doesn't get any love when they provide the most jobs and invest the most in renewable energies, I think, anywhere, which is, I'm a big fan of their cars. I'm a big fan of all the things that they're doing with Tesla. But this is something we've talked about on the channel, is these cars are still operating off of coal. It's operating off of coal and natural gas and all the different things that create the energy in our country right now. So a lot of people think that just because they're driving an electric car, they're contributing to renewable energies. They're actually not. They're still getting their energy from the grid most of the time. So it's a step in the right direction. But like we've talked about on the channel, this is something that's going to take decades to be renewable energy. I wish we could just snap our finger and we all could have electric cars and solar panels and everything's energy, renewable energy, but that's not the way the world works. The world doesn't work that way, unfortunately, and we're in a situation where it's the game theory, the game of chess of letting other countries make a fortune off of oil while oil prices are skyrocketing. And we're not taking advantage of the fact that we can be the number one producer of oil. We are the number one producer, but it's slowly going down as we shut down our own pipelines and stop focusing on our production. Because in the near term, that's where our power comes from. It's just that, point blank. And so let me show you actually on my screen here. So here's the actual tweet, just so you know that I'm not making this up. Hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. Elon Musk. I mean, is that not wild to everybody watching this? It's like he is the last person you would think to say something like that, but he's telling the truth. The truth is we need to focus on it, and we're not. It's a very scary environment right now because let's take a look. What's interesting is literally the textbook of what we've been talking about on the channel of the hot potato theory, my dollar hot potato theory is playing out. Look at the dollar index just skyrocketing up to 98.50 on the dollar index. So obviously people are going into the dollar as they're scared, as this risk off type place, where the problem is they're going to start feeling the effects of inflation, and that's when that hot potato theory comes into play, and that potato is going to burn them if they don't do something with these dollars soon enough, based on how fast inflation is coming in. But let's go down to, or up to oil prices. Oh my, I didn't even realize that before I started the video. It's up at $115 a barrel. Wow. That's actually just hitting me right now. We were just talking about it being over 108 a barrel and then over 110 a barrel, and then boom, now it's at $115 a barrel. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's just insane. Right after Powell was speaking and the State of the Union and all of that, and you see oil up at $115 a barrel. So obviously this is what Elon Musk is talking about here when he says, hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. Now, the thing to talk about, and also, by the way, guys, I'm a Precious Metals channel, so if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do click the subscribe. Everybody who smashes the like button in these live streams, I really appreciate you, because it helps. If the algorithm doesn't put my videos out, we do it anyway. We figure out a way. I always say that in these live streams because if you follow me on Instagram, at Rob Sultan on Instagram, I put a link in the story on my Instagram, and then we find workarounds on getting these videos out there to more people. So everybody that helps me with that, I really appreciate you. But I have some charts I pulled up behind this, actually, I wanted to show you, and also here as well. The first thing I was going to show you is this. There was a report recently talking about the de-dollarization efforts in China and Russia. Basically, China and Russia have been trying to de-dollarize for a long time, and as of recent, Russia has actually pretty much de-dollarized. So that means they don't hold much dollars on their balance sheet. So the global role of the U.S. dollar, the dollar has served as the world's dominant reserve currency since World War II. A reserve currency is a currency held by central banks in significant quantities. Now, if that is what the role is of the dollar, if Russia is de-dollarizing and China is de-dollarizing and they're not holding dollars in their central banks, and I have the charts to show that as well, they were getting prepared to be kicked off SWIFT a long time ago. When sanctions hit, I believe it was in like 2014 is when they started de-dollarizing. So they've been getting prepared for this for a good minute. China has tried to de-dollarize in trade and investments for some time with limited success. The Chinese government has pressed trading partners, including Russia, to denominate in some trade in RMB, established RMB trading centers in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Europe. The role of the dollar, there's a part of this I wanted to show you here. So this is pretty insane, this chart here. Look at the Russia's export to other countries, currency composition of payments given to Russia. Look at the chart here in dollars. So huge chunk now in euros, which they have more control over. Let me move myself over here for a second. Russia has a lot of control over Europe. They provide a lot of Europe's oil and gas, and this was actually pointed out a while ago with our former president with Germany. Sat him down and said, "Hey, you guys are really letting Russia have a strangle on you a little bit here because they provide you most of your oil, and that's why you're seeing so much of their money coming from the euro." What's interesting is their dollar is dropping significantly, which is pretty scary. Russia's de-dollarization efforts since 2014, and that's what I was talking about. The Russian government accelerated its de-dollarization in 2014 when the United States imposed sanctions on Russia in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Over the next several years, the United States expanded sanctions on Russia for a variety of malign actions, including the U.S. election interference. Russian President Vladimir Putin called for de-dollarization to insulate the Russian economy from existing potential future U.S. sanctions. Existing and potential future U.S. sanctions. So how ironic, right? So this was in 2014. It sounds like we're talking about today. Actually, hang on. I'm in the way here, but I was just reading this. It sounds like I was reading something that would be from today, but this is actually a 2014 study here. Then here it's talking about 2021. Russia is focused on de-dollarization efforts in 3 areas. First, the Russian government reduced its own holdings of dollars. Russia's central bank cut shares of its reserve in denominated dollars by more than half between 2013 and 2020. In July 2021, the Russian finance minister announced plans to completely remove the country's sovereign wealth fund dollar-denominated assets, which accounted for about 1/3 of the $186 billion fund. So does that not tell you everything you need to know? I don't know what does, but here, let me pull this down real quick because I was going to show you something else. So this is actually what's going on over in Russia. In Russia right now, and this is all relevant to what Elon Musk is saying here. The reason Elon Musk said what he said is I think that he's worried that the dollar might be up for losing its reserve currency status, which ironically Powell brought up. That, hey, the dollar might not be the reserve currency, the only reserve currency out there. And it's like, why did you say that in the last couple days that you just spoke, Jerome? That didn't make very much sense because Powell used to talk about how high on the pedestal the dollar is and that no one's going to displace it from the reserve currency status. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, and that just went over everybody's head, I guess. Not our channel, but over a lot of people's heads that he talked about. And you can look it up. Talked about, well, there's room for another reserve currency. It's like, really, Fed Chair Powell. Interesting. But so above me right here, I got to make sure I remember where I am on this chart. So let me put this over here. So the first thing I was going to show you is Russia's holding a lot of euros now. And the reason for that is because they're supplying a lot of Europe's oil. So Europe is in a very tough predicament here because most of their oil or a lot of their oil is coming from Russia. And so that gives them a lot of power to do the types of things that they're doing. And that's why there's not much interference on what's going on over there, I would imagine. And that is why you don't see dollar in here, do you? You see 20% gold, 5% yen, 5% pound, 30% yuan. So 30% to China, 40% to euro. So 70% of this wealth fund in Russia is going towards euros and yuan. Why is that? And there's no dollars. Why is that? Interesting. And then we're also turning off, and then we are turning off our pipelines. And interestingly enough, I show over here, Russia's central bank has moved to euros and yuan. This is a study from 2014. Ironically enough, what I was just showing you, the reason I showed you that little write-up is talking about 2014 sanctions on Russia. And from 2014, they've been preparing. So holdings in US dollars, ever since the first sanctions rolled out, they dropped dollar holding, and then brought it down. And then they brought up holding of yuan since 2017. Why is that? Why are you randomly starting to buy, hold Chinese yuan on the balance sheet, and then you're holding a ton of euros? Because you have more control over Europe than you do over the U.S. That's what I think is going on. Then Russia, here's another thing that's interesting. Let me move this down here. Russia overtakes Mexico as second largest oil exporter to the U.S. So that's an interesting situation there. You have Mexico that used to be the second largest oil exporter to the U.S. and now Russia. Russia's the white line here. So it used to be down here, and then suddenly Russia is starting to export a ton of oil to the U.S. Meanwhile, we're shutting down our pipelines. Interesting. So that's some of the information I wanted to show you. And then this is the last one I had pulled up over here to kind of show you why I think Elon Musk is saying what he's saying. In crude oil production, Russia is number 2 as of October 2021. And the other reference for the U.S. is November of 21. They're pretty dang close. They passed up Saudi Arabia recently in oil production. Now, the difference here is that Russia has a lower population than the U.S. does. It's actually, or not I think the lower population consumption of oil. So they export most of their oil. They're second in production as of recent. And that's if this figure is accurate. Who knows how much they're hiding or whatever is going on. But we're told that they're second in production right now, very close to the U.S., who's actually starting to do less and less production. And the difference is Russia is the number 1 exporter. So although they're number 2 in production, they're the number 1 exporter. They're exporting more oil than they consume themselves, which puts them in a very powerful position here. Now, if it wasn't for the ruble tanking, they'd be in a very good position. So it's interesting to see how this plays out. But I would argue it's like, hang on, let me go back. So what I'm wondering is, did Russia know what was going to happen here? Did they know that the ruble was going to tank? Did they know that this was going to put them in an unfortunate position in the economy? Or did they know that they were in a powerful position based on them being the number 1 exporter? Did they know they were in a position of power with Europe so that they would keep more euros on their balance sheet, get rid of the dollar, and maybe their goal is to try to knock the dollar off of reserve currency status? That might be the ultimate chess game of what's going on. I don't want to sound, this is just, I like to spark conversations about these types of subjects. Not that I know it's to be true. Everything that I say here is just my personal opinion, so not to be taken as financial advice or advice in any way, shape, or form. I just like to have these discussions on what's the possible scenario here, and is there more than just trying to take over what he's trying to take over right now? Part of me wonders, is there a monetary aspect to this? There's a lot of things. There's a lot of natural resources over there, and part of me wonders, is that part of it as well? Because at the end of the day, oil is power in today's society, and I think that's what Elon Musk is getting at when he brings this up in the tweet that I had pulled up here. So it's like it's pretty insane. It's pretty insane to see Elon say something like that. And that's also, to be honest, that's kind of it's like a check back at the current leadership not giving him the respect that he deserves, sort of thing, I think. Saying, hey, look, you guys need to increase oil and gas output immediately. I believe in renewable energies. I want renewable energies to succeed. His whole mission is to accelerate renewable energies. And the person whose entire mission to accelerate renewable energies is saying something like that, that's insane. Something tells me there's something going on around here with that. But also, I mean, it's wild to see that oil is up at $115 a barrel. I mean, to put it in perspective, let's put up the 1-year chart. That's the 1-year chart on oil. Now, if that doesn't show you inflation is out of control, I don't know what does. Again, the oil crisis is what caused the stagflation last time we went through stagflation. I say that quite a bit on the channel, and I think that we're in a situation where this is a sign that we are actually in stagflation right now. People are talking about, are we in stagflation? Is it going to happen? Or is stagflation going to happen in the future, rather? But I would argue, and I have been arguing on my channel, that we're in stagflation as I'm speaking right now. We've been in stagflation for, I would say, months, and people just don't understand it or grasp it yet. But the thing that is interesting is history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes, is the saying, right? And it's very evident that there was an oil crisis that caused stagflation of the late 70s, early 80s, and that caused us to have to raise rates up to 20% to stop it. Now we're unable to raise rates that high. I've exposed on my channel just in the past, actually, I think I still have the charts pulled up here to show you. So this is the Fred data here. So last time we went through stagflation was here. So the last stagflation was in the 80s, and I believe this is what Elon Musk is looking at. I think the reason Elon Musk tweeted this out is because he knows what caused stagflation last time. He knows that inflation numbers are a lot higher than we've been told and are going to continue to not be transitory. So he's saying stuff like this, saying, hey, it's really important that we produce our own oil. We produce our own energy here because that makes us independent. That's what gives us our strength. But the last time there was an oil embargo crisis, and again, this here was caused by an oil crisis. You can look up stagflation of the early 80s, and it was caused by an oil crisis. The inflation, to get this to stop, they had to raise the federal funds rate to 20%, and then it brought it down back to normal levels. But now we're back up. I would argue we're back up here, and we're just not using the same CPI that they used. I've said that quite a bit of times in this channel. But what's interesting is if we're half of that, and you had to raise it to 20% to stop this, and we're half of that, then you would have to raise rates to 10% to stop that. And this is what I've shown in the last video. So this is the federal funds rate. Let me pull this back a bit. I think I got to pull it to here. So here's the federal funds rate. Here is what they had to have it at. So they had to bring it up to 22% to stop inflation, though it's at a similar level as it is now. So this is, hang on, let me put me over here. So when inflation was at that high level over 15%, they had to raise it to 22% to stop that. Now we have inflation that is half of that, is what we're being told. And even if it was half of that, I would argue it's more than it was back then, but they're saying it's half of that. Then they would have to raise it to half of that to stop it. They would have to raise it to here. But they're here. They're at zero, and they've been at zero. So it's like that's what people don't understand, is that if they raise it a 0.25% or even a 0.5%, that isn't the 10% that they need to do to stop it. They would have to put it here. If they had to put it here to stop inflation that was here, then that would mean they would have to bring the federal funds rate to 10% to stop a 7.5%. It's just that simple. It really is. But these are not the charts that we're being shown. We're only being shown this on my YouTube channel and other YouTube channels out there, but I don't see it out there in mainstream anywhere. But that's the truth. And that's why there's no way out of this. I mean, and then what are you going to do? Nobody's going to buy bonds. Are bonds going to protect us? No. So that's what are people doing? They're flooding into this area here. They're selling off their equities. They're flooding into dollars. And then that money all gets put into this area here, I believe. I think it's going to get flooded into safe haven assets, and that's what we're going to see. And then the bonds market, I see that unwinding as well, coming into there as well. So bonds and equities, I see flooding into that space. And it's only getting so obvious just how out of control inflation is when we see oil price skyrocketing. It's scary because it almost seems like it's on purpose. It's so obvious. The signs are so obvious and they're so written that it almost seems like what's going on is on purpose. It's kind of scary to say that, but it's just wild seeing this happen in real time. And it's all stuff that we've been talking about for, months and months and months on the channel. So seeing this happen now it's a bit scary. I was I was struck off guard. I mean, Elon Musk tweeted that what time was it when he tweeted that? He tweeted that literally at 4:40 p.m. today. Right now it's 7 o'clock. So this is like two and a half hours ago is when he tweeted this out. And I just decided to go live to talk about it real quick, just because that really is wild to me to see him do that. Of all the people, Elon Musk going out there and saying that. He said, and then actually he has a second tweet. I didn't even talk about that. He says, obviously this would negatively affect Tesla, but sustainable energy solutions simply cannot react instantaneously to make up for Russian oil and gas exports. Boom. I didn't even know he said that. I literally said that's what he's doing here. And then he clarified it in the tweet underneath that. So I didn't even realize that until now that that's exactly what he meant by it. So he's scared about Russian oil and gas exports. And that is what we've been talking about for a while. What else has Elon said today? Let's see. Let's go to his stuff here. Talking about Ukraine. Yeah, that's a totally wild thing for Elon Musk to say. Of all people. And then to see oil at $115 a barrel. What a close. We had an insane day in precious metals, by the way. And if there's anything that goes to show you the impact of Russia on precious metals, if there's one metal that shows the impact of what Russia does, it's palladium. And look at palladium. Palladium closes over $3,000 an ounce, and that is the bid price. It is right at, I think it's back at all-time highs. It might be past all-time highs now because the ask is actually $3,080 an ounce on palladium. If you have been a subscriber on my channel, you know I've been talking about palladium for a long time. Crazy to see that. Palladium is absolutely skyrocketing, and that just goes to show you it's not only affecting the price of palladium, but it's affecting the price of oil because Russia exports a lot of the oil to Europe and exports a lot of oil to the States as well. Very evident of what's going on here. Palladium is actually a very good gauge of how much Russia affects the marketplace. So keep your eye on palladium. I've been accumulating palladium. I haven't sold any of my palladium position. I've been accumulating quite a bit. So I think palladium is going to be going up. And then what that also causes is, this is the sleeper. Platinum is up 4% today. So palladium up 8%. Platinum is up over 4% today. Platinum has been a sleeper for a long time, and I think platinum is extremely undervalued. As palladium continues to ramp up, people are going to have to start buying up platinum as well. So something tells me platinum is about to do a big move here. But these metals, it's a huge day for metals, and so I should be going live. Maybe I'll stop this live feed and go back live and talk about precious metals in a little bit to kind of separate the clips for people that are watching this video later. But huge day for precious metals, just a scary day for oil. And I was driving by the gas station as I came to my office. Hang on, let me go back. I was driving down and saw the gas prices, and it was well over $5 a barrel. Over in places like Los Angeles, I've seen gas prices that are around like $7, $8 a gallon. Yeah, that's just outright insane. So I think people are going to start feeling the pain of inflation. And the thing is, like if you look up the definition of stagflation and you bulletin point the definition, it's low economic output, high inflation, high unemployment figures, and then you have some sort of catalyst, some sort of supply shock is the term that they use, a supply shock. If that's not exactly what's happening here, I don't know what is. It's textbook of what's going on right now, and I think it's just all too apparent. So I don't want to watch these interviews anymore where people are like, is stagflation coming? Is high inflation coming? No, it's here, and it's been here. It's not, is it coming? It is here. It's not transitory, and people need to prepare themselves for how ridiculous inflation is about to be. And I think that there is a very strong possibility if Russia is backed into a corner with their ruble tanking. I should show how much the ruble is tanked, actually. And I see the super chats, guys. I will get to every single super chat, just so you know. I might not be able to get to every comment, but I never miss a super chat. I do see them. I just want to get these points out before we get to the super chats. But I do see them. I'm not going to overlook those. I really appreciate it. I never miss a super chat. It means a lot to me. Let me go back to the screen share here. I just want to show you the ruble real quick. Oh my, Does that not show you what is happening to the ruble right now? So the thing is, what I'm curious about is somebody who's been preparing, and I've watched recent interviews with the Russian president. He's talking about we've been preparing for this, guys. Like he had an interview thing, or not an interview, but a talk with his entrepreneurs and stuff like that in his country, and I saw a translation of it, and they were basically talking about how they've been preparing for this. They're like, yeah, we've been preparing for this situation. We've been preparing to get kicked off the SWIFT network. That's why we've been building our own and doing all these things. So it's like, were you prepared for this? Were you prepared for your ruble to absolutely plummet in value? I mean, let's look at the yearly here. This is the year chart. This is the yearly chart on the ruble to the dollar. I mean, absolutely plummeting, and the divide is going to get further because the DXY is skyrocketing right now. So people are flooding to the dollar as a safe haven. But the problem is, if we're not producing as much oil as we could be, then we might not be that safe haven because our dollar is back to oil. It is back to that. So we need to be in this, we need to strengthen our reserves. We need to strengthen our production. And I think that's what Elon Musk is getting at right now, because Russia has obviously been strengthening their production of oil and producing more and more and more. They have overtaken Saudi Arabia, as I just showed you in the prior chart, for the second most production of oil. But the problem is they're first in exports. Second in production, first in exports, and number one in production is the U.S. And we could be turning on our pipeline, but we decided to not turn on that pipeline, the Keystone. So it's like, or not even that we didn't, we just shut it. They shut it down. And so it's like, what team are you fighting for? The people shutting down our pipelines is what Elon Musk is saying. I think it's like, if you're for Team USA, you want to be pumping as much oil as you possibly can right now. So anyone that's against that is in my opinion, not Team USA. I mean, if your dollar's back to oil and oil is as precious as it is today, I mean, why in the world would you give that kind of power up to another superpower like Russia? I mean, why is that? Why? I mean, Germany is getting most of their oil from Russia. And so it's like, if you're in that predicament and they're the ones controlling that, I mean, what they price their oil in could really shock the overall markets. My buddy who I've interviewed, Greg Foss, I need to get him back on the show and start doing the podcasts again. I haven't done a podcast in a while, but he was talking about this in our interview on the podcast, and he was talking about what if they price their oil in Bitcoin. Now, I would argue that they're probably going to price it in gold, because that's what they've been accumulating. Just in the last few days here, they actually started accumulating gold again, and they had not bought gold for 2 years in Russia, and over the last week, they recently started buying gold again. That's recent news, which is something that's very interesting as well. But to see the ruble tank like that is insane. But before I forget, I see some super chats over here. Let me get to those. I want to scroll, make sure I didn't miss any of them. I really appreciate those. Thank you. There's the first one. The Sask Farmer gave me a super chat. Says, love the channel and always get great value. Have you calculated what inflation weighted high in oil would be? Roughly 150 in 2008 dollars. That's an interesting calculation. I wouldn't know it off the top of my head. I haven't done it, but I'm actually I'm going to remember that, and I should do a video on that or something along those lines. If you calculated inflation, what would be? That's an interesting question. That's one I'm going to have to put some deep thought into. That's a really interesting question. Maybe someone in the comments right now, put your opinions. See, I can only know so much information. I want to stress that I'm not a guru. I just try to give the most simplified information I possibly can. So there's probably a lot of really good comments on that in the comments section. What do you guys think of that? Have any of you calculated the inflation weighted high in oil would be? Calculated what the inflation weighted high in oil would be, roughly $150 in 2008 dollars. Somebody, I'm curious what the comments say on that, but I'm going to look into that after this video. I can't answer that at this exact moment because I have to be honest, I don't know, but I would be very curious to study that. But I'm sure there's going to be some good comments. That's why in my live streams, I always make sure that I post the live comments to the videos. So even if you miss my live stream, I make sure that those comments, you have to specifically do it in the YouTube backend. It doesn't check it automatically. You have to go into the backend, make sure that the live comments show when you post the video later on. So I always scroll back and look at the comments because there's a lot of really valuable information in the comment sections. But very interesting questions. I appreciate the super chat. Something I'll have to look into. G-Dub. What is up, G-Dub? Appreciate you being here again, man. And thank you for the super chat. He says, I'm thinking about starting a local food truck for cash flow. Might that work well while the dollar loses status and inflates? What kind of business would you start if you had to do something different? That's a great question. And I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea, actually. Let me go back here. I think, so you said you want to start a food truck and you're doing that for cash flow. I mean, if you're in an inflation scenario, and I get the question all the time, like what would you do to combat inflation? And the first answer every single gold and silver salesman in the country would tell you, which I am one of them, would say, buy gold and silver. But the true answer, and what I try to tell people on my channel, is to build your own business. Because you can protect yourself with precious metals, and it will help you. Obviously, they've gained quite a bit of value recently, but that's more of what I consider precious metals is like the bank. Like that's your own personal bank. Your family's bank is precious metals, and you have access to it. You have full custody of it, and then it protects you, and that's your bank money. But then you need to have a cash flow. And so I would argue number one is cash flow. So that would be my main focus. Like I've talked about this. I think you're actually the one who asked that question in the last video, but it wasn't specifically like this question. You were talking about, how do you protect yourself from inflation? And I would say number one is having a business that operates off cash flow. Like, why did the dollar store change to a $1.25 store? They did that because of inflation. So they had the choice that they could change their prices, and they have their own money printer. So they say, hey, we have high inflation, so the price is now $1.25. Now, if you go around to different restaurants, you're going to notice that there's higher prices because they can change the prices of their food because they had to pay more for the food for inflation. It's not like I still can't believe that State of the Union comment of like, well, this is how you stop inflation. The way you stop inflation is that you give people higher wages and you lower your costs. Boom, done. And it's like, what kind of career politician statement was that, man? Like, that was unbelievable. It's like, how do you even... it blew my mind. And then people were even clapping and stuff. And then after the day after that, then Powell comes out and talks about everything he talked about. It was just a rough week. Altogether. And then now, after all of that, oil price is up at $115 a barrel, and you don't see any of the leaders talking about it. Why are they not talking about that? That's what literally caused stagflation of the late 70s, early 80s. Anyway, to answer your question, G-Dub, I think it's a great idea, and I think if you bulletin point exactly what you're trying to do and start small with low overhead. I think that's the key, is just having as low overhead as possible. When I started in the collectibles business, I just lived in my office, literally just lived there, and then took showers at the gym. And I actually miss those days, to be honest with you. I was way more in my element back then. So now I have to drive here and do all this. But I used to be like, keep my overhead as low as possible, and then just keep flipping and do whatever I could to preserve as much cash as possible. And then the second that you break through, like say it's with your food truck. So say your overall expenses is like, maybe you're even able to finance the food truck. Maybe you don't have to drop like 50 grand or whatever on the truck, right? Maybe you can actually finance that, so you can calculate it into your overhead cost, so you can put it down, deposit, and finance it in a certain way depending on that, and have your overhead cost of it like, maybe it's $1,500 a month or something like that, and you finance it, or $1,000 a month. That would be the best way to do it. Instead of just tying up that much of your cash, I would use that cash for like inventory and stuff like that. So I would put a down deposit on it, cash flow as much as I possibly could, and try to my goal would be on month 2 or 3 to get positive cash flow coming in with a food truck. So like keep the overhead as low as possible. Calculate it on a monthly basis. So say the cost of everything is like $3,000 a month. That first month that you break from $3,000 to $4,000, that'll be a good feeling, G-Dub. I remember the first month that I had enough to pay like my overhead, and I had just enough, like my overhead was like $2,000, and I made $2,000 in profit. That was a big day for me. I was like, wait a minute. Now, if I do this again and I get a little bit more, now we're making money. And then you're actually able to get the thing moving. So I would focus on low overhead and getting profitable as fast as possible. And then you'll just start maximizing on that. And then you can get multiple food trucks and stuff. So I don't know. I think that's a great idea. And it all comes down to how good of a food truck it is too. Because you can have a crap food truck. Let's be real here. Make sure the food's good. You got to have good food on that thing. So think that through a little bit. But if you got a good idea, you got a good food truck, you got things that people want to eat, I think it's a great idea, G-Dub. hopefully that answers the question. I really appreciate the super chat, man. That was very generous of you. But yeah, it's a crazy scenario here playing out. I mean, the other thing too is of all people, when I keep saying it, of all people to do this, is Elon Musk is just wild. But it just goes to show you how rough leadership really is. And I'm not a political person. I don't like to be left, right, or any of that. I like to be my own, and I'm a libertarian. I just believe in a small government. I think that the American Party really is the Libertarian Party. I don't think that there really was supposed to be a Democrat-Republican Party. I think if the framers saw the way that we vote today, they'd be like, this is foolish. Why are they labeling themselves? What is this? I think they would be totally opposed to it, because it's like, if you label yourself as a libertarian and you don't have this divide, then you don't have to choose between you don't have to choose weak candidates. You know, you don't have to have in a situation where you're forced to choose somebody based on them being a Democrat or a Republican or whatever. You could choose them based on you actually liking that individual and thinking they were intelligent. Obviously, what's going on now is I don't think we have the I hate being political. I really don't want to be political, but I think people can catch the drift of how I feel about things. I don't want to the algorithm. I really do rely. So we have 150 people up in this live stream. I really do rely on those likes. If you hit the like button and this video is valuable information to you, I know it's annoying to be asked that, but if you hit the like button, if you take that 1 second to hit that like button and turn it from green to blue, it really does help my videos get out there in the algorithm. Because otherwise, this is not the type of content that gets pushed. You catch my drift. That's why I keep telling people, please follow me on the Instagram, at Rob Sultan on Instagram, and I put my videos in the story. This time I forgot to put it in the story, but usually I put it before. I just wanted to go live really quick about this, but even after this video, I'll put a link to it in my story on Instagram, so if you ever miss one of these, or if you want to get a notification somewhere else, you can always see that on my Instagram story. Again, at Rob Sultan on Instagram, and all pictures of my collectibles and stuff like that are there as well. So, yeah, that's pretty much... And what's awesome is this community, it's not just about, I mean, I see a lot of the YouTubers out there doing these live streams and stuff, but something about our community and the fact that I don't have to have a moderator, we all kind of have a free-for-all in the comment sections, it's valuable information in there. So it's like, most people will say, well, like, how do you protect against inflation? Well, you buy gold and silver and that's it. And it's like, well, no. The real answer is, how do you protect from inflation is you inspire small business. And something that bothers me, one of the things that I get really bothered about is this lack of entrepreneurship, because people are scared. I think the figure is like 90% of entrepreneurs fail, right? That's what they say, is around 90% of entrepreneurs fail. And I would argue the reason 90% of entrepreneurs fail is because they focused on college first and they didn't realize they had a supercomputer in their pocket. Like, point blank. Like, how do I have this fancy mic and have this fancy setup and everything? It's all self-taught from YouTube videos. When I first started out, I'm like, how to make a YouTube video? Boom. Like, how to set up. I literally Googled, you want to know how I figured this mic out? I Googled Joe Rogan's mic. I'm like, what does Joe Rogan use? And I literally figured a Shure SM whatever 7B or something is the mic. And like, what do I need? A Rodecaster Pro. Okay, I'll get that. Okay, I'll buy that. And I just went on Amazon and I was just like, boop, 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 got everything I needed and just learned that way. And then there's some people that are like, pay $100,000 to a college to learn how to do a live stream or something. And it's like, no, you don't need to go to radio broadcast journalism school or something. I think that figure that 90% of entrepreneurs fail should jump down to like 30% fail and 70% succeed, because the tools that you have today are unbelievable. I think humans have so much tools that they're bored. It's like, how much more intelligent is a human with an iPhone? Dramatically more intelligent, dramatically more capable. But we're using statistics that are around since like the 80s that we can't succeed in entrepreneurship. And it's like, no, I think people can succeed in entrepreneurship a lot more. They're just not told to do that. But that, anyways, long story short, these comment sections are really valuable for a lot of people and it inspires a lot of people, including myself. You guys inspire me to get on my grind and rebuild things that I'm working on and whatnot. So I see a couple of super chats. Let me get to those real quick. I was rambling for a second there. America First says, and I like the name. He says, own my own HVAC company. History shows very little impact on business regardless of economic situation. People will go through almost all amenities before comfort. got over 2K of silver, 2,000 ounces of silver stacked too. Right on. Congrats on the 2,000 ounces of silver, man. And that's brilliant. It's true. It's like, so if you own the company, you can change your prices. You can roll with the tide, so to speak. You go with the flow. And it's the individuals that are getting paid. See, what's the situation for employees right now? The situation for employees is they're getting paid the same wage with a currency that is inflated. So if your wage is the same and you're getting paid with a currency that is inflating in value, or you're losing your buying power due to inflation, that's not what you want. You want wages to stay the same or go up and have the currency tighten and have less inflation and grow in value. It's the opposite of what you want. So it's a very tough scenario for an employee, because you don't have a boss that's coming up to you and going, hey, inflation is out of control right now, so we should bump up your wages 20%. Like, what boss is doing that? Very rarely is somebody going to come to you and say, hey, you make $4,000 a month. Well, let's bump it up 20%. You're going to make $4,800 now, $5,000 now. And it's like, I don't see many bosses that are going to do that. But the owner of the business can charge different prices for the things that they're charging for. But the problem is also, it's a tough time altogether. But I would say that it's a lot easier to start a business today than it ever has been. And I think that the idea that it's hard to be an entrepreneur is only that way because of the way traditional school traps people, so to speak. I think that traditional colleges trap people and they get caught up in this amount of money that they owe usually. So some of them will try to be a doctor or something, and they'll go through like 8 years of college, and they're in like wonderland over there in college, and they don't get to feel the real world. When I moved into my office building when I'm 28 now, and I think I was 23 when I moved into my office building, and I lived there for 4 years when I started things with my company. And so I had like less than, I think like bankroll style, I had like less than 5,000, and then I had another like 5,000 to pay for overhead, and I was just eating away from that month over month over month, and I almost didn't get through. But I kept the overhead as low as I possibly could and worked every single day and started flipping and keep making my percentages, and then it just added up. Compound interest is a hell of a thing. So I just think that what the problem is, a lot of people go to college and they get caught on that, and they don't feel the real impact of the real world, and they don't feel what it costs to actually live and all of that. And then once they realize how much it costs for an apartment, how much it costs for food, how much it costs for gas, your car, all these different things. And then on top of that, you have this big $100,000 debt or $200,000 debt. Who knows how high your debt is. And then it's starting to accumulate interest. Now you're trapped because you can only make so much a month, but you have to keep your job now. You can't jump off and do something different because you have this huge pile of debt that's going to follow you to the grave. So it's a very tough environment for kids kind of forced to go to college, when I think college is an absolute scam. Like, I'll just be point blank about it. I'm biased, but I think college is absolutely worthless. I think it's a total scam. Excuse me. The only thing it's not worthless for is if you want to be a lawyer or you need the prerequisite for whatever it is you're trying to do. So I would, even if I was trying to be a lawyer, I would do it at the cheapest possible rate I could. Like, I would literally go to the cheapest college. I wouldn't care about the degree. I don't care if it says Harvard or Stanford or anything like that. I would just do the bare minimum, do all of my courses online, and do everything I possibly could. I don't even care if I pass with all D's or C's or whatever, just to get my law degree. And then I'd do the Saul Goodman, if you ever watched the Breaking Bad or whatever, I'd do the Saul Goodman and just get my thing online, get it the cheapest thing possible, and then let how good of a lawyer I am stand for it, but keep the overhead as low as possible. Just get the piece of paper and get it done. But so many individuals are like, well, I need to have the Harvard mark on my law degree. I want to go to Harvard Law, and I want to get $250,000 in debt just to be at some pretentious school. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's just a piece of paper. A lot of people get that piece of paper and they realize they're not valuable afterwards. Anyway, that's a bit of a rant, just to say that it's a good idea to own your own business. And congrats to that individual for owning his own company. Paul Allen says, everyone give Rob a 149 super sticker. I appreciate you saying that, man. You gave me a super chat, telling other people to give me super chats. I appreciate that, man. Then Paul Allen gave another one, coin with a star. I appreciate that, Paul. Thank you, man. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in this live stream. Maybe I'll stop this live stream and then start up a new one to talk about precious metals a little bit. But I wanted to keep this one a little bit short just to talk about the things with Elon Musk and what is going on there. I mean, pretty wild. Again, I'll just to close out on it. I mean, this whole video is just about how Elon Musk is talking about and the funny thing is, I talked about this in the last video. I literally, if you look at the thumbnail of the last video, I used the same oil can in the thumbnail because I was literally just talking about this like a day or two ago. And I've been talking about this for a little while on the channel. And then sure enough, Elon Musk says this today, just a few hours ago. This is literally 2 hours ago. He says this. Obviously, this would negatively affect Tesla, but sustainable energy solutions simply cannot react instantaneously to make up for Russian oil and gas exports. He knows the truth. The truth is there. And just to reiterate, I would love to see a renewable energy U.S. I would love to see, I mean, it's true that I think it's like a corner of Utah or a corner of Nevada could have solar panels that could, operate the whole country. But the truth is, even if you were to do that, it would take dozens of years. It would take 10, 20 years to get that done. And that's probably at a short timeline. So the truth is, in the short term, and this is what Elon's talking about here, is in the short term, we need to get that cash flow up. We're talking about business right now in the comments section. We're talking about cash flow. We need to do that as a country. We're talking about doing it as individual Americans. The country needs to get the cash flow up. And if we're in a situation where we're letting other countries get their cash flow up and trying to, and not only that, but countries that are preparing and have de-dollarized their country. They've de-dollarized, so we're getting knocked off the pedestal of the reserve currency over there as we impose sanctions, and they need to find workarounds around the dollar. They got kicked off the SWIFT system. They've got all these sanctions, so they're pushed into creating their own currency. And then on top of that, we're not producing as much oil as we could be and allowing them to be in control of exports. That's not a good scenario. We want more cash flow for the country. And what Elon is talking about, although this negatively affects Tesla, in the short term, we need to be winning at business. Just because a short-term thing isn't it doesn't help for renewables. In the short term, it's going to help the country because we're going to get a ton of money for the country, and we don't need to rely on foreign energy sources. We don't need to go and beg OPEC for oil. That's what our leadership is doing, is turning off our pipelines and then going and begging OPEC to help us. And it's like, why are we doing that? That is the most weak move ever. It makes you look so soft as a country to go and beg for oil when it's sitting right beneath your feet. It's unreal. And that's what Elon's talking about. And you know what? I've been opposed to Elon kind of pumping Dogecoin because I knew people were going to lose a lot of money on that. And by the way, that was one of my most hated videos, is when I was against Dogecoin, because they were a crazy bunch, those Dogecoiners. But that was back when it was like 70 something cents before the that thing. And I told everybody, I'm like, Dogecoin is not going to, don't think it's a great idea. And now it's what, like 10 cents for Dogecoin? 10 cents, 15 cents. That Dogecoin millionaire is now the Dogecoin 100,000-aire. So he doesn't make too many videos anymore. But I was against his Dogecoin hyping because I knew that wasn't it's not a decentralized coin, and I knew that it would never work. So I was against that with Elon Musk, but I got to give him props. For saying that, you got to give him props, because at the end of the day, that is like me coming out and saying, I don't believe in Rolexes. I don't believe in gold and silver. Palladium is foolish. I don't like platinum, palladium. That's like me doing that and just outright going against my own investments. And so for him to do that, you got to give him a lot of credit. Like, that's probably going to affect Tesla stock on Monday. I would imagine that the CEO said something like that. But the thing is, he doesn't have a filter, and he's telling the truth. You got to respect a guy like that. You got to respect him. I mean, I wonder what Elizabeth Warren will have us to say about this, Elizabeth Warren, like, no, don't say something like that. Oh, the guy who doesn't pay, even though you paid the most taxes of any human on planet Earth, this guy, he's saying stuff to pump oil again. We want to damage the country. We want to damage it. Don't say something like that. It's crazy, the fools in control of things. It just blows my mind. But props to Elon for calling him out. Props to him. You got to love it. You got to love it. But on that note, everybody, let's call this live stream one done. I'm going to post this live stream up, and we'll keep this one under an hour. Maybe I'll go live in a little bit. I want to make sure I didn't miss any of those. Yeah, Paul Allen was the last one. I appreciate that, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for those super chats. It means a lot to me. And we will get to another. I think I'll do another live stream maybe a little bit later today. So I'll post in my Instagram story on Instagram. If you go to @RobSultan on Instagram, on my story, I'll post a link to the next live feed I'm going to go on. I'm probably going to go live in another hour or two. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do click the subscribe and then click the notifications, the bell afterwards. So you click subscribe and then the bell, you'll be notified of all future videos. Well, we hope you'll be notified of all future videos. But if you're not notified, make sure to follow me on Instagram @RobSultan on Instagram, and then you'll see a link in my story on Instagram, and it'll link you over to the live stream for the next one that we're doing. I like to do that where I put it. Yeah, you can actually put the link in the story on Instagram so people can click it and then go to the live stream waiting room. So if you'll hopefully get the notification here, but if you don't, you'll get it on Instagram. So follow me there. But we're going to call this one a live stream and post the video up just so people can watch it for later if they missed the live stream. And we'll go back live in a couple hours here to talk about precious metals. I've been wanting to talk about precious metals because absolutely insane week in precious metals. You know, like it's finally happening. The funny thing is like this is long overdue. I was talking with my buddy earlier today, and we were talking. I was like, man, this is crazy. And he's like, no, it's not. We're long overdue. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're right about that. So it's long overdue. But to see, I think what's really is insane is seeing the platinum metals group. So to see the PGMs doing what they're doing right now, the platinum group metals are absolutely performing, which is pretty crazy to see. The palladium, that play has been doing really well for me. So we've talked a lot about palladium in the past. So I plan to talk about it probably in this next video here. So let's call this one a live stream. Appreciate everybody for liking the video to help it get out to more people, and I will see you in a little bit.